Shalom, party people, and welcome to the 12th C. So, Abomination study, unequal weights and measures. This one is a little bit interesting because, as we're going to see when we jump into my spreadsheet in just a little bit, that this is the shortest section in all of this. If you've powered through the 5-hour video on the sexual morality side of things, or even the 3 to 4 hour side of the diet one, those really have some pushback in them. And so I wanted to adequately address the pushback that's there. We deal with unequal weights and measures. Like, I don't know anybody who is adequately coming forward and saying that scripture is wrong in these areas. And so there's not something for me to stand up and say, hey, scripture calls this an abomination. And so when culture says, this, we need to push back on it. Well, the thing is that with the unequal weights and measures, most of us generally, we take the idea of, okay, they have these scales and they have these weights that are on here, so we know that when I'm buying 100 pounds of grain or whatever, that they can put what they think is 100 pounds of grain on this side, and then they put a 100-pound weight on that side, and they set it there. And when the scales that are balancing like this are even, then we know, okay, hey, according to this weight, there is this much of this second item, like in this case, grain over here. Or something that's a little bit more relevant, we start dealing with like buying silver, because that's up right now, and so you're weighing it by the ounce. You want to make sure that when you are buying 1 ounce of silver, that the silver that's over here is with a 1 ounce weight, and those are even. And so that it's equal weights and measures on that. Okay, cool. Well, we have digital scales now. So do we have to calibrate it? Well, I work in a maintenance environment. What about if I've got a torque wrench or whatever, and I am going up to torque a bolt, and the torque wrench is set to 100 pounds or 100 foot-pounds, because it's 1 foot long and it's 100 pounds of force coming down on it to make sure that bolt is the appropriate torque that's on there, so it doesn't have a problem, that it's not too tight and breaks, or too loose and it falls off. I'm looking at you, Boeing. Anyway, in that, we want to make sure that what we're using is calibrated appropriately. Because just because the wrench says that it's that, just because the digital scale says that it weighs that much, we want to be sure that what we're using is actually correct. So in some environments, things that are calibrated tools like scales or torque wrenches, things of that nature, or sent off precision measuring tools. Yeah, it's not your Stanley Fastmax tape measure that matters, but a machinist's scale, when they are literally turning something out on a lathe, they want to know that when something is 1/100,000th of an inch, that they are measuring the correct amount. So those kinds of things get calibrated, and they get sent off to a specialty shop, and special measurements are done, and that those kinds of things in general, people will be like, yeah, those are good things. Okay, well, what about equal weights and measures are about when we're being fair with somebody? You go to the grocery store or whatever, and you buy 5 pounds of hamburger. Is that 5 pounds of hamburger actually 5 pounds? Have you ever weighed your meat when you purchase it from a grocery store? I have, because a lot of times we buy ours in bulk. And so, we have digital scale that comes out, and then we set out the meat in bulk, and then we will put it in different packages and then stick them in the deep freeze. And we, try to have even amounts, because just pro tip here, if you are buying 5 and 10 pound tubes of hamburger, put them in 2-pound increments inside of a gallon baggie, and then store them flat. So it's like a thin sheet of paper all the way through, and you freeze it. And as soon as it freezes, then you can actually stack them vertically. Takes up way less space in your freezer, and then that thaws really, really fast. You just toss it in the sink, and in 20 minutes you actually have hamburger that you can cook now. So for what that's worth. But weighing out your stuff, then you find out that 10-pound tube of hamburger you bought is only 9.25 pounds. I got gypped here. Or what happens when it's over? You paid for 10, but you actually got 10.75 pounds. That's almost a whole extra pound worth of money. So where do these implications lie? And this is something that I want to look at in scripture. does this mean we need to literally like chase nickels and dimes? Conclusions up front, the general principle that I see is when you are at fault, you need to make it right. Like you go out of your way to make it right if it's your fault. If it is somebody else, you generally give them the benefit of the doubt. You might bring it to their attention if it's grievous. But like in general, if it's an honest mistake, okay, it probably was an honest mistake. And so having an element of grace, but still operating with a sense of fairness. So yes, hey, you know what? It's $4 a pound and I got shorted almost a whole pound. Hey, I'm not looking to get my money back. I just want to let you know that I bought a 10-pound tube and this is weighing just over 9 pounds and I've weighed it on 3 scales. I'm not looking to get my money back, but I'm just wanting to let you know, be on the lookout. That happens several times. Either I'm not shopping there anymore or I am going to get my money back. Those are the general. But if I discover or if someone points out to me that I have wronged them, I need to do everything I can to make it right. Those are the general conclusions that I'm getting from scripture. And that's not necessarily from these specific verses, but you start looking at some of the passages around this. Specifically, we're going to spend some time in Deuteronomy 24 and 25. And in general, it's like, make it right, but don't oppress somebody about it. That's kind of where this lands for the most part. But if it is on you, and it is your fault, you do everything in your power to fix it. That's kind of where it lands. So let's look at my spreadsheet real quick. I want to go over, because this is a free spreadsheet. It's in the description down below. Like, please take it and use it to your heart's content. So, abominations throughout scripture. But specifically, we're today going to be looking at unequal weights and measures, which this is a very, very brief overview of where we're at. There are 4 sections to this sheet. There are the color sort section, the Hebrew sort section, the Greek sort section, and the raw data color code section. Color sort is primarily where we're going to be. What we've got in column A over here, the book of the Bible, and you'll notice that there is a particular color. We've got, black up here. That's the miscellaneous section, which the unequal weights and measures almost went into. We've got improper worship, which is this orange color over here. And then we've got green, which is diet. And then we've got purple, which is sexual immorality, where we were last time. And then, idolatry, and then sexual immorality, where we were the time before that. And then from there, we jump all the way over into unequal weights and measures. This one, you'll notice, is very short. And then next time, we're going to be in character/action, which is this pink color over here. You'll notice that in column B, we've got the chapter of the book, and then the verse in C. D, E, and F over here are going to be what translation of scripture that I consulted for this. King James, Scriptures 2009, and ESV are just 3 translations that I like to use. Not all of them, obviously, but 3 of my most common. Then column G, what we're dealing with is the Strong's Concordance reference number for the Hebrew word that is used in the passage if it uses Hebrew. And then the Greek over here is in column H. That one, what we're dealing with is the Greek Septuagint if we're dealing with the Old Testament, and then obviously the Textus Receptus or Masoretic text, Masoretic text is Hebrew, Textus Receptus, or the critical text, depending on which translation is using what. Then column I, we're dealing with who the offender is for whatever's going on. Column J is the offense. K is the offended person or party. Usually it's Yahweh, not always. And then if there are any context or notes, those will be available in L or M over here. And then sometimes there will be some color codes that go out. The color codes that you'll notice that are in J, L, M, and then sometimes a little bit further out from there, what we're dealing with on those is going to be the color codes that correspond with what's going on in column A. And then if you see a blue color that's in D, E, F, or column B, that will alert you that either in that specific verse, if it's in D, E, F, that the word that is used is abomination or a variant of abomination. And then if you see in column B where the chapter is highlighted in that light blue, what that is alerting us to is that that chapter contains an abomination of some kind in what's going on. So let's jump back up top. And again, like I said, that spreadsheet is just free notes for you to use. Link is down in the description. Also a video that does like a full breakdown on what the spreadsheet is, how it works, and how to access it. You can find in the first couple of links in the description. Please don't sleep on that spreadsheet. I hope that you guys take it and play with it. You can actually copy it and use it. Otherwise, it's just live read only. So if I ever update it, you'll have the most up to date without having to update any links or anything like that. I poured a lot of effort into it, and I want you guys to have that as a free resource. Like I never want anything off of any of my Bible videos. So just free notes, take them and use them to your heart's content. Where we're going with this so far, we're going to spend some time in Deuteronomy 24 and 25. And this, like you may see, depending on what translation of scripture you're using, the title headings may even label a lot of these like miscellaneous laws. And Deuteronomy, like the whole book, is just like bullet points of the Torah. And it's a really good indicator. Like if you are trying to get a crash course in what righteousness looks like, Deuteronomy is a really good place to start. I mean, obviously Life of Messiah is like the perfect example of what righteousness looks like. But if you're looking for really practical bullet points, and some of these may not make sense until you actually start kind of fleshing some of this out, Deuteronomy is a great place to start. So let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 24, and then we're going to read 24 through 25. And I want to give you guys a little bit of have in your bag 2 kinds of weights, a large and a small. You shall not have in your house 2 kinds of measures, a large and a small. A full and fair weight you shall have, a full and fair measure you shall have, that your days may be long in the land that the Lord your God is giving you. For all who do such things, all who act dishonestly, are an abomination to the Lord your God. All right, let's frame this, Deuteronomy 24, and keep in mind those verses that we should act fairly in what we are doing. Deuteronomy 24. When a man takes a wife and marries her, if then she finds no favor in his eyes, because he has found some indecency in her, and he writes her a certificate of divorce and puts it in her hand and sends her out of his house, and she departs out of his house. And if she goes and becomes another man's wife, the latter man hates her and writes her a certificate of divorce and puts it in her hand and sends her out of his house. Or if the latter man dies, who took her to be his wife, then her former husband, who sent her away, may not take her again to be his wife, after she has been defiled. For that is an abomination before the Lord. And you shall not bring sin upon the land that the Lord your God is giving you for an inheritance. So you may be looking at those couple of verses and thinking about, hey, what's going on here? Well, in that, fair and just measures. If somebody is taking his spouse and divorcing her, and then after she has, married somebody else and divorced that other person, and then him taking her back, a lot of people in this time frame were using this as a form of wife swapping. They weren't just like, oh, hey, I've reconciled my differences and I want to take you back. That's not what people were typically using this for. They were using this to almost literally pimp their wives out. And Yahweh is saying, stop. Do not do that. You divorced her? Done. It's not trying to have your cake and eat it too. Oh, hey, me and my wife, we want to go swinging or whatever. That is not okay in this. And so it's like, okay, you're going to end your marriage. It's over. None of this halfway stuff. And that's kind of the key in this, is you can't do marriage on halfway mode. It's either all or nothing. Found that very interesting. All right. ESV labels this whole section miscellaneous laws. So let's keep going. When a man is newly married, he shall not go out with the army or be able or be liable for any other public duty. He shall be free at home 1 year to be happy with his wife, whom he has taken. No one shall take a mill or an upper millstone in pledge, for that would be taking a life in pledge. If a man is found stealing one of his brothers of the people of Israel, and if he treats him as a slave or sells him, then that thief shall die. So you shall purge the evil from your midst. A couple of verses in this, and we're just like, hey, what are these? What's going on here? Man who's newly married, so he has married his wife, and in all likelihood, he and his wife have established, their own little homestead, fiefdom, whatever you want to call what's going on here. But Yahweh is saying, hey, before you can take this dude off for military service, let him enjoy what is his for at least a little while, because he might die. Let him have an opportunity to sire a child. Let him have an opportunity to actually enjoy what is his for just a little while, in hopes that he gets to enjoy it for a very long time before he passes of old age. But in the chance that you guys go to war and then dude dies, like, think about this. Like, we look at World War II or Vietnam, we had 18-year-old kids who were getting drafted. And, they got married very, very quickly, and, whole side issues with that. But, some of these widows were literally getting notice 2 years later, because their husband had been gone so long, that they had become widows. And they didn't get a chance. And this is a sense of fairness. So, no one shall take a mill or an upper millstone in pledge, for that would be taking the life in a pledge. How are they supposed to process their food? The very, very last thing that they would give away was literally their tools. So, like I said, I'm in a maintenance environment, and literally a dude pawning away his tools, how is he going to make money other than that? Found that kind of interesting. This is a sense of fairness, of you have to allow them to have a sense to be able to provide. And if they can't, then how are they ever going to pay? So this is putting a limiter on somebody. And this is, yes, if they owe the money, should they pay it? Yes. But are you so strong in the sense that you should take what is owed to you, that you would take the very ability of them to feed themselves away? Man's found stealing one of his brothers of the people of Israel, and if he treats him as a slave or sells him, then that thief shall die. You shall purge the evil from your midst. Saying, hey, you can't take your own people and sell them. That is a no-go. We can get into the whole slavery debate in the Bible, and listen, I've been through all of those scriptures. I understand where people's fury is over this. At minimum, bro, you can't be selling your own people. It's a no-go. At least putting a limiting factor on this. Verse 8, take care in a case of leprous disease to be very careful to do according to all that the Levitical priests shall direct you. As I commanded them, so you shall be careful to do. Remember that the Lord your God did to Miriam on the way as you came out of Egypt. When you make your neighbor a loan of any sort, you shall not go into his house to collect his pledge. You shall stand outside, and the man to whom you make the loan shall bring the pledge to you. And if he is poor, you shall not sleep in his pledge. You shall restore him the pledge as the sun sets, that he may sleep in his cloak and bless you, and it shall be righteous for you because the Lord your God. So we can get into a little bit of what's going on here in verse 8. Take care in the case of leprous disease to be very careful to do according to all that the Levitical priests shall direct you as I commanded them. So you shall be careful to do. Remember what the Lord your God did to Miriam in the way that you came out of Egypt. So Miriam got a case of leprosy. In this, he's just saying, hey, these rules that were given to you, do not treat lightly, because if you want to curb the spread of contagious disease here, you probably should take a really hard look at that. That's what we're seeing in this. And in the weights and measures side of it, it's just saying don't skimp on it. And that's noteworthy. Verse 10, loan of any sort that you're collecting from your neighbor. If he's giving you the literal shirt off of his back, we don't see that too often in our society. But if he is literally giving you the shirt off of his back, how is he supposed to keep warm? If he's giving you his last blanket, his cloak even, to the point in which he's using that to try and secure a loan, if you are keeping that long enough that he can't sleep in it at night, something is wrong with you. So in that, this is putting a limiting factor not only in the, like, what does it do to you, but like, what are you doing to your brother when these things happen? It may be owed to you, but don't go seeking it out to the point that you have denied someone their very shelter. Very interesting limiting factors. You shall restore to him his pledge as the sun sets, that he may sleep in his cloak and bless you, and it shall be righteousness for you because of the Lord your God. You shall not oppress a hired worker who is poor and needy, whether he is one of your brothers or one of the sojourners who are in your land within your towns. You shall give him his wage on the same day before the sun sets, for he is poor and counts on it, lest he cry against you to the Lord and you be guilty of sin. If you owe something to somebody, you better pay it. That's what this is coming out at. And the sense of giving somebody their wages, because in this society they were paid daily. Some of us are paid weekly, some of us are paid every 2 weeks, some of us are paid every 15 days or whatever, some of us are paid every month. Some of us, if you've done some cool things, you might have gotten paid every 90 days, and those are some long waits in between paychecks, I can tell you, but when they get there, they're nice. In this society, a daily wage, some people literally are making enough so that way they can eat the next day. And that is crazy, crazy to think about. How many of us do we know are living paycheck to paycheck now? So if somebody owes you money, they might need it. If you owe somebody money, they might need it. This is kind of where I'm coming from in the sense of the Torah in this, equal weights and measures. There is an element of grace in it. You don't need to be going after somebody. But at the same time, if you owe them something, you better pay it. So treat others with a really well dignified sense of grace. But do everything in your power to pay them what you owe them. So that's kind of what I'm seeing in this. Fathers shall not be put to death because their children, nor shall children be put to death because of their fathers. Each one shall be put to death for his own sin. And don't think that the child or the father, whoever's losing the other, is walking away scot-free in this. This one is just putting a limiting factor on this. This is removing some of the blood feud retribution that some of this stuff can come out to. And it still hurts other people. Like, our sin still has impact generations down. But the bare bones price of it is paid by the one who owed. In this, doing what's fair. If someone did something that is worthy of death and they must be put to death for it, are we going and Easiest thing I can think of, someone who's on death row for, murdering children. Are we blackballing the family of that person for what they did? Someone's got to stand for their own mistakes. A little bit less. What happens when, you got two brothers and one of them is really mean? Are you going to treat the other one the same way? Just because one of the two was mean to you? It's like, oh, I know exactly who you come from. Your brother, like, you guys are just... I've known plenty of people that the reputation that they carry is because of something that a family member of theirs did. And that shouldn't be the way that we treat other people. Verse 17, you shall not prevent justice due to the sojourner or to the fatherless, or take a widow's garment in pledge. You've got somebody else who their means is not very much. Whatever they could possibly give you is probably the very last that they have. I mean, look at the widow's mites. She gave 2 copper coins, and that was all she had. But you shall remember that you were a slave in Egypt, and the Lord your God redeemed you from there. Therefore, I command you to do this. When you reap your harvest in your field and forget a sheaf in the field, you shall not go back and get it. It shall be for the sojourner, the fatherless, and the widow, that the Lord your God may bless you in all the work of your hands. Are you going back and are you squeezing literally every penny out of something because it's owed to you and it's yours? Or are you allowing other people who need it to benefit from it? This is that whole dichotomy of if you owe something to somebody, pay it back. But if somebody owes something to you, man, operate in grace. And yeah, should they return it? Yes. If it is a big deal or, maliciously done, yeah, there are ways to rectify those things. But in general, man, we need to treat other people very, very well. When you beat your olive tree, you shall not go over them again. It shall be for the sojourner and the fatherless and the widow. When you gather the grapes of your vineyard, you shall not strip it afterwards. It shall be for the sojourner, the fatherless, and the widow. You shall remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt, and therefore I command you to do this. Leave room for other people to be able to come in and get what they need. This doesn't mean unlock your doors and open your fridge and just say, hey, come take it. But how about this? Why in the world are we not inviting more people to dinner? I see the whole episode, that Thanksgiving episode of Boy Meets World, there's always more room at our table. That is a very, very valid option. Why in the world are we not inviting more people to dinner? Why in the world are we not trying to be gracious in who we operate around? Just being aware that not everybody is doing financially okay. Now, are there people who are making poor decisions? Of course. But how can we help people if we are operating at such a far distance from them that they'll never listen to advice, let alone, take the hand up that you can offer them? So those kinds of things are really noteworthy to pay attention to. That yes, something is owed to somebody. Pay it back. Somebody owes you something. Operate with some grace here. Chapter 25. If there is a dispute between men and they come into court and the judge decides between them, acquitting the innocent and condemning the guilty, then if the guilty man deserves to be beaten, the judge shall cause him to lie down and be beaten in his presence with a number of stripes in proportion to his offense. 40 stripes may be given him, but no more, lest if one should go on to beat him, with more stripes than these, your brother be degraded in your sight. You shall not muzzle an ox when it treads out the grain. So, interesting section on here. These first 3 verses. Disputes going on, and a judge decides between them, and he decides guilt from innocence. And somebody deserves to be beaten. I get it. Hey, this is an archaic court system. We don't do public beatings. Maybe we should. That's a discussion for a different day. But the judge says, hey, this person is to lie down and be beaten in his presence. Why? Because if you just prescribe the beating, you have no way of controlling it if it's done outside of your presence as the judge. So it's like, hey, it's supposed to be done here and now. Sentence carried out immediately. We're not having someone sitting and waiting for a long time for their sentence. We're not having someone just like, oh yeah, we'll take care of it either. So it's relatively swift justice, which is very interesting. And then there is a limiting factor on how much can be done. So that way someone can't be carried away in what they're doing. Notice also that there is Torah for if someone is beaten severely. So there's limiting factors in other places of the Torah of what's going on here. So noteworthy. 40 stripes may be given, but not more, lest if one should go to beat him with more stripes than these, your brother be degraded in your sight. So a degrading beating seems like what's going on here is a beginning of cruel and unusual punishment limitations that can happen. So not going to be beating someone in perpetuity, not going to be beating them to death. 40 stripes sounds horrible. It does. But 100 would be much, much worse. Anyway, you shall not muzzle an ox when it's treading out the grain. It's interesting because Apostle Paul quotes this verse. You shall not muzzle an ox when it treads out the grain. In the sense of, the ox is doing work for you. You can't or shouldn't stop him from eating while he's working. Does this mean that every break room needs to have food in it? I don't know. I don't know. But one sense of fairness that should be in this is when people are doing work for them, you need to take care of them. That should matter. Does this mean that employees should be able to take things from the company? No, of course not. You don't see the ox in this taking the whole or a large portion of the reaping of the harvest. No. What you do see is the ox being able to fill his stomach while the ox is working. In a sense, someone's working for you, you should take care of them. Laws concerning a levirate marriage. If brothers dwell together and one of them dies and has no son, the wife of the dead man shall not be married outside of the family to a stranger. Her husband's brother shall go into her and take her as a wife and perform the duty of a husband's brother to her. And the first son whom she bears shall succeed to the name of his death, or of his dead brother, that his name may not be blotted out of Israel. And if the man does not wish to take his brother's wife, then the brother's wife shall go up to the gate of the elders and say, my husband's brother refuses to perpetuate his brother's name in Israel. He will not perform the duty of his husband's brother to me. Then the elders of the city shall call him and speak to him. And if he persists, saying, I do not wish to take her, then the brother's wife shall go up to him in the presence of the elders and pull his sandal off his foot and spit in his face. And she shall answer and say, so shall it be done to the man who does not build up his brother's house. And the name of his house shall be called in Israel, the house of him who has had his sandal pulled off. So this is very strange to modern ears, but in the sense of what's going on here is that you have 2 brothers and one of these 2 brothers dies. The living brother, what he's supposed to do is he's supposed to take the wife of the departed brother, and he is supposed to help perpetuate his brother's line. And this is an inheritance thing. So let's think about it this way. You have 2 brothers, and let's just say there's only 2 brothers. So who's getting dad's money? Who's getting dad's land? who's getting dad's cows, who's getting dad's sheep, who's getting, dad's gold and silver and things like that. One of those two brothers dies. So if it's only two of them, then the other one's getting all of it. He wants it for himself. In this sense, what the one who's living should do is go and help make sure that his son, or not his son, I'm sorry, make sure that his brother died with an heir. Now, obviously, this wouldn't be required if the first brother had male living children. But if he has no sons, then his inheritance is effectively cut off. What this is doing is it is perpetuating inheritance throughout the land to make sure that land and gold, silver, cattle, sheep, houses, like things of value are going to who they are due to be. And this is very interesting because oh my gosh, why would this dude go and bang his dead wife and bring forth another child? Well, legally speaking, in this society, that son that he has for his brother is not his. It's legally his brother's child. So that way the inheritance passes to that person. You can actually see this law played out in the book of Ruth, because Boaz is actually going to who the rightful kinsman redeemer, that's what this is called, the rightful kinsman redeemer of a levirate marriage, is going to the other dude and being like, hey, you're legally bound to this. Are you going to fulfill it? Or is Boaz going to do it, who Boaz is the next in line? And Boaz is basically told by the other guy, like, hey man, like I don't want any part of this. So that guy's actually admitting that he would be shamed if he didn't follow through on this. And Boaz does the righteous thing and helps perpetuate the line. And that's done through Ruth, which is just kind of a fascinating story. You want to see all this play out. But the sense of fairness that is in this, the unequal weights and measures, is if the brother doesn't do this, he's actually claiming inheritance for himself. And that's where the shame is in this. And we miss that in our society because we're, so far removed from even the concept of a levirate marriage in our day-to-day lives. Now, living this law out, I hope that all of my brothers have kids, because I do not want to have to be the guy to perpetuate, my brother's line. And, conveniently, all the metaphorical brothers that I have, and I have no, blood living brothers. So there is that. But all the metaphorical brothers that I have who are, close in my life with wives have kids. So, dodged that bullet on this one. But in actually playing this one out, the inheritance that is there is codified in a very interesting way. All right. Verse 11. Again, we have this titled as miscellaneous laws. When men fight with one another, and the wife of the one who draws near to rescue her husband from the hand of him who is beating him, puts out her hand and seizes him by the private parts, then you shall cut off her hand. Your eye shall have no pity. In this, you're like, whoa, why is this in here? And I always loved joking with a friend of mine about these two verses that were in here. Is like, you had to know this happened at one point to where they're like, we need to codify this in law. Just like, man, that one specific thing, if this ever happens, here's what it is. In this, though, we may scoff at this. We may just like, man, what is going on here? In this, we may see something strange. But this is in the sense of a fight. It's one thing if the fight goes to blows to the point where a wife is having to intervene to, pull off the other man off of her husband. But what this specific woman is doing, where she's literally grabbing the dude by the balls, she's potentially squeezing, because, it's not like she's just poking. She's trying to break up the fight. So in grabbing another dude by the balls, she is quite literally threatening his ability to continue his line. Obviously, a fight should be broken up, and there is nothing wrong with her eye gouging the dude. There is nothing wrong with her punching the guy in the face. There's nothing wrong with her, going for the hamstring on the guy. But there is something wrong with her literally grabbing the dude by the balls and yanking. In that, a fight shouldn't go to the point where you are threatening another dude's lineage. There is a biblical case for self-defense, to where when you believe that your life is threatened, that you may take another life of the person who is trying to harm you. In general, this is a fist fight that seems like it's getting out of hand. Rescues her husband from him who is beating him, puts out her hand and seizes him by the private parts. So yeah, she's grabbing and she's putting pressure and she's probably pulling. So she is potentially cutting off the ability for that man to continue his lineage. And that's fascinating in this. So, you can call this, hey, don't fight unfair. Okay. We shouldn't be living in such a way that causes fights with other people in general. Is violence necessary sometimes? You better believe it. But the difference between a life and death fight and a fight that just gets out of hand should be worlds different from each other. This may even be a sense where these two dudes are dragged before the judge, and the judge has to prescribe guilt and innocence, and then one or both of these guys may get a beating. So this is something that seems strange, and it really does. But the borderline, bare bones basic on this is no crotch shots when you're fighting, because it's one thing to break the dude's tooth. It's one thing to break the dude's arm. It's one thing to, knock the guy out, give him a concussion or whatever. It is something completely different when the guy can no longer reproduce. So the easiest way on this one is no crotch shots. Obviously, where we were at the get-go of this section, 13 through 16, you shall not have in your bag 2 kinds of weights, a large and a small. You shall not have in your house 2 kinds of measures, a large and a small. A full and fair weight you shall have. A full and fair measure you shall have, that your days may be long in the land that the Lord your God is giving you. For all who do such things, who act dishonestly, are an abomination to the Lord your God. Remember what Amalek did to you on the way as you came out of Egypt, how he attacked you on the way when you were faint and weary, and cut off your tail. Those who were lagging behind you, he did not fear God. Therefore, when the Lord your God has given you rest from all your enemies around you in the land that the Lord your God is giving you for an inheritance to possess, you shall blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven. You shall not forget. So we just had this whole section on treating other people with dignity, and then we have this section here, verse 17 through 19, to literally obliterate Amalek and his line from living memory. What's going on? Well, you can go and read for yourself what is going on with Amalek and his descendants when Israel is coming out of Egypt, and they are literally picking off the sick and the weak, those who are scraggling behind. It's one thing to have an army attack another army and then fight off, and then there may be the whole raid, pillage, and plunder from what's going on in that. But these dudes are picking off the sick and the weak and those who are lagging behind for sport. And Yahweh is telling his people, like, hey, that was not okay. Go and make sure that these guys can never do this to you again. You want to fast forward. A descendant of Amalek is the whole enemy in what's going on in the book of Esther. Haman is a descendant of Amalek. And because Israel did not do that, did not take care of that, they had to deal with the possibility of being wiped out, because a descendant of Amalek hated Israel so much that he had a law put out to where the descendants of Israel could be slaughtered and do nothing about it. Wild, wild plot that's going on in the book of Esther. And that is just flash forward in the future. A lot of times what we see when we're dealing with these verses that tell Israel to slaughter a particular people group, if they don't, that group of people tends to be a huge problem for them later. So in that, it's a very, very interesting thing that you're having to deal with. So we could have done so much more of Deuteronomy, but I wanted you to walk away with a sense of the right and wrong of what this righteousness looks like, of having equal weights and measures, of do not cheat other people is effectively what it's boiling down to. And those other people should not cheat you. But we also need to operate with grace. And if you are just doing a very, very like wooden interpretation of equal weights and measures, of, well, I'm just getting what's due to me, don't oppress somebody. And that's where this whole thing boils down to. And it's fascinating that it pretty well ties into some of them, way stronger than others. But in general, fair weights and measures ties into so much of Scripture. And we may even acknowledge that it's there. But how do we treat other people? Another thing that I want to, put in the back of your mind, when we slack off, whether it's at work or with our families, or, think about this too, in the rest that we should be getting. Are we treating those things fairly? Are we giving somebody or something or someone what is due? So, are you checked out when you're with your family? I do it. So, like, I can't be just pointing fingers at other people, because I do it and it happens and it's horrible when I do. Am I actually giving them my time and attention when it is their time? At work, am I being lazy? At work, am I, slacking off and like, hey, this is what I'm supposed to do, but I'm really gonna, kind of just half-ass it. It's not right. When it is time to rest, are you actually like metaphorically unplugging? Yeah, I get the whole Charlie Kirk thing, turn your phone off for Shabbat. Oh, okay, cool. Like, but what does it actually look like to rest and unplug and unwind and not spend so much of our time just clocking through, going 90 miles an hour and letting our thoughts race? Like, I know this last Shabbat, my mind was going 100 miles an hour and I really wasn't taking time to slow down. Is that giving someone what's actually due? Or are we literally just, like, I'm going through the motions? And that's a sense of fair weights and measures that I don't really ever hear talked about very much, including our rest. But when it is go time too, we need to be giving everything our all. And I know that sounds really weird, to give it your all when you're resting. But yeah, like, actually commit. It's the whole crap or get off the pot, but it matters in what we do. When it's time with our family, are we actually giving our family our time and attention? When it is time at work, are we actually kicking butt and taking names? And yeah, you need a breather. You need lunch break. You need time to catch, whatever. I work a job where I'm on call. And, what does that look like? But actually committing. So that way you are not just coasting through. And yeah, it sounds weird because you're actually resting when you shouldn't be. And then when it's rest time, then your brain's going 1,000 miles an hour because you've got all these other things going on. It's like, dude, just unplug for a few minutes. Take a breather. So those fair weights and measures, I want to bring that forward, because I never hear that talked about. And yes, this fair weights and measures applies to being righteous in what we are doing, treating other people with grace, so that way we're not depriving them of the things that they absolutely need to operate in this world. But when we owe somebody something, when we owe somebody something, we should do everything in our power to pay it. And if that's time, pay them that time. And if that's respect, pay them that respect. And if that's like work that is to be done, or rest that should be done, quality time that should be done, give them those things. Because if you're just half-assing it, it's not good. There are 6 things that the Lord hates, 7 that are an abomination to him: haughty eyes, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked plans, feet that make haste to run to evil, and a false witness who breathes out lies, and one who sows discord among his brothers. In general, this one is a little bit more loosely associated with unequal weights and measures. But in a sense, a false witness that breathes out lies is relatively tied to unequal weights and measures. Proverbs 11:1, a false balance is an abomination to the Lord, but a just weight is his delight. When pride comes, then comes disgrace, but with it, the humble is wisdom. The integrity of the upright guides them, but the crookedness of the treacherous destroys them. Verse 1, the abomination that we see there, H8441, G946, very common. Previous one that we saw back in Proverbs 6 was H8441, G167, I believe. But false balance is an abomination to the Lord. So you've got crooked scales, unequal weights and measures, but a just weight is his delight. So when we are operating with righteousness, when we are operating, this is what I owe you, here you go, that is a delight to Yahweh. Proverbs 12:22, lying lips are an abomination to the Lord, but those who act faithfully are his delight. A prudent man conceals knowledge, but the heart of fools proclaims folly. In this, what we're dealing with is H8441, G946, and that abomination word. What we see here is lying lips are an abomination, but those who act faithfully are his delight. A prudent man conceals knowledge. So, hey, I'm just not divvying this out left and right. But the heart of a fool proclaims folly. In our acting justly, equal weights and measures, are we being faithful or are we lying? That even extends to the words that come out of our mouth, unequal weights and measures. We're telling one person one thing and one person something else. That's uneven. It's not right. This one doesn't have the word abomination in it, but it actually has 2 words that in other cases have been translated abomination. So let's just look out for those. Proverbs 17:15. He who justifies the wicked, and that word wicked is H7563 or G169. He who justifies the wicked, or he who condemns, and that condemns is H7561 or G169. So the G169 comes up many times in Scripture, in the Septuagint specifically, and it is translated abomination also. It appears in the New Testament like that too. But he who justifies the wicked and he who condemns the righteous are both alike an abomination to the Lord. And we do see abomination there. It's a different form of abomination than what we typically are seeing categorized in the unequal weights and measures. That one tends to be more of a character one, and we'll get into that one next time. But he who justifies the wicked or condemns the righteous. So we have somebody who is calling good evil and evil good. That's uneven weights and measures. It's fascinating because they've effectively flipped on what they're doing, but it is still not good to call evil good or good evil. That's something that we need to be very, very careful of in our society, and we're doing it in the sense of idolatry or in fornication or in things that we are putting into our bodies that we shouldn't be putting in our bodies. Those kinds of things, we're calling good evil and evil good, and we cannot do those. It's unequal weights and measures. It's also bad character, which we're going to get into next. Proverbs 20:10-23. Unequal weights and measures are both alike an abomination to the Lord, and that abomination that we're dealing with here is H8441 G946. Even a child makes himself known by his acts, by whether his conduct is pure and upright. The hearing ear and the seeing eye, the Lord has made them both. Love not sleep, lest you come to poverty. Open your eyes, and you will have plenty of bread. Bad, bad, says the buyer, but when he goes away, then he boasts. There is gold and abundance of costly stones, but the lips of knowledge are a precious jewel. Take a man's garment when he has put up security for a stranger, and hold it in pledge when he puts up security for foreigners. Bread gained by deceit is sweat to a man, but afterwards his mouth will be full of gravel. Plans are established by counsel, by wise guidance wage war. Whoever goes about slandering reveals secrets. Therefore, do not associate with a simple babbler. If one curses his father or his mother, his lamp will be put out in utter darkness. An inheritance gained hastily in the beginning will not be blessed in the end. Do not say, I will repay evil. Wait for the Lord. He will deliver you. Unequal weights are an abomination to the Lord, and false scales are not good. What we see in this one also is H8441, G946. It is not good. So, in this, we're looking at verse 10 through 23. Unequal weights and measures are both like an abomination to the Lord. Even a child makes himself known by acts, by whether his conduct is pure and upright. So, in what a child is doing, he's going to show where he's actually at. If he is operating righteously, his conduct is going to show it. And same for you. A hearing ear and a seeing eye, the Lord has made them both. Love not sleep, lest you come to poverty. So, are you checking out when you're supposed to be working? Unequal weights and measures. Open your eyes, and you will have plenty of bread. So, bro, get after it. Bad, bad, says the buyer, but then he goes away and then boasts. Are you haggling with somebody over price? And you may even be subtly insulting them. And then you brag about the best deal ever that you got. So are you being deceitful in how you obtain what is yours? Unequal weights and measures. There is gold and abundance of costly stones, but the lips of knowledge are a precious jewel. So, just noteworthy, what you say matters. And if you are a person who is wise, your very words are valuable to people. What about the inverse? If you're foolish, your very words are useless to people. They may even be pulling them down. Take a man's garment when he has put up security for a stranger. Hold it in pledge when he puts up security for a foreigner. So you may be asking with what we read in Deuteronomy is like, oh, hey, you shouldn't take somebody's garment. And this is an extenuating circumstance when the person is vouching for somebody that nobody else knows. So if they are very willing to give up their warmth at night for somebody else, that should be telling you something about them. Of, okay, maybe this person really is trustworthy that they're vouching for, because they're betting their very last thing on them. Noteworthy. Bread gained by deceit is sweat to a man, but afterwards his mouth will be full of gravel. So if he's gaining it deceptively, he may be working hard for it in the moment, but what he gets is not equal to what he quote unquote worked for. Or on the other end of it, he's deceptive by what he is doing, and he's getting exactly what he worked for. Deception, because he was trying to obtain bread and he actually got gravel out of the deal. So just food for thought. And Proverbs are, not always a one-for-one. This is just general wisdom literature that comes from Solomon. Plans are established by counsel, by wise guidance wage war. So you shouldn't be going to war on bad intel. Whoever goes about slandering reveals secrets. Therefore, do not associate with a simple babbler. Are your words revealing too much? If one curses his father or his mother, his lamp will be put out in utter darkness. An inheritance gained hastily in the beginning will not be blessed in the end. Equal weights and measures. Are you honoring where you came from? And are you trying to obtain things in a way that you didn't really earn it? Unequal weights and measures. Do not say, I will repay evil. Wait for the Lord. He will deliver you. And as we saw in the end of 25, sometimes Yahweh says, hey, go get this done. It's rare, but sometimes he does say that. But you should not repay evil. Let him be the one to do it. Unequal weights and measures are an abomination to the Lord, and false scales are not good. Do all of those have a one-to-one direct unequal weights and measures? No, there's elements that are sewn throughout. But I think that those verses that we were just looking at, 10 through 23, were telling us that this whole unequal weights and measures things applies to more than just what we're thinking of weights on a scale, calibration on a torque wrench, so to speak. It applies to much, much more in how we are operating our life. We're dealing with in this one, Micah 3, verses 9 through the end of the chapter. We're going to see the word detest in verse 9. And that actually could be translated abomination. It's not, but H8581G948 is the Greek and Hebrew behind those. Hear this, you heads of the house of Jacob and rulers of the house of Israel, who detest justice and make crooked all that is straight, who build Zion with blood and Jerusalem with iniquity. Its head gives judgment for a bribe. Its priests teach for a price. Its prophets practice divination for money. Yet they lean on the Lord and say, is not the Lord in the midst of us? No disaster shall come upon us. Therefore, because of you, Zion shall be plowed as a field. Jerusalem shall become a heap of ruins, and the mountain of the house of wooden height. 3, how, they were essentially proclaiming that like all is well and that Yahweh is in our midst and he is good. And we found out that those who were in power were not doing well. They were, calling good evil and evil good. They were making crooked the straight. They were doing what was detestable to Yahweh, and they were claiming what they were doing was right. So they were really utilizing unequal weights and measures in that. And I just wanted to dwell with those verses for a minute. All right, let's do Micah 6:10. Can I forget any longer the treasures of the wicked in the house of the wicked, and the scant measure that is accursed? Shall I acquit the man with wicked scales, and with a bag of deceitful weights? Your rich men are full of violence. Your inhabitants speak lies, and their tongue is deceitful in their mouth. Therefore I strike you with a grievous blow, making you desolate because of your sins. You shall eat, but not be satisfied. There shall be hunger within you. You shall put away, you shall put away, but not preserve. And what you preserve, I will give to the sword. You shall sow, but not reap. You shall tread olives, but not anoint yourselves with oil. You shall tread grapes, but not drink wine. For you have kept the statutes of Omri and all the works of the house of Ahab, and you have walked in their counsels, that I may make you a desolation, and your inhabitants a hissing, so that you shall bear the scorn of my people. Yahweh's letting these guys know, hey, this is not good. You guys are being horrible in what you're doing. I can forget any longer the treasures of wickedness in the house of wicked. and scant measures that is accursed. Shall I acquit the man with wicked scales and with a bag of deceitful weights? Guys, y'all are operating in a horrible manner, is what they are being told. The word for accursed in verse 10, what we're dealing with is H2194 or G459. And in that, these guys are operating their whole lives with unequal weights and measures. And there's a curse that is coming on them of destruction that Yahweh is saying, hey, this is not right. You guys are operating unjustly. These verses several times, and it applies to this entire section of what we're dealing with of unequal weights and measures, because we see great beauty coming in the new life, and a warning that those who are operating unrighteously will have no part in it. Revelation 21:1. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and the sea was no more. And I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, behold, the dwelling place of God is with man. He will dwell with them, and they will be his people, and God himself will be with them as their God. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more. Neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain, nor any more, for the former things have passed away. And he who was seated on the throne said, behold, I am making all things new. Also, he said, write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true. And he said to me, it is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To the thirsty, I will give from the spring of water of life without payment. And the one who conquers will have his heritage, and I will be his God, and he will be my son. But as for the cowardly, the faithless, the detestable, as for murderers, the sexually immoral, sorcerers, idolaters, and all liars. Unequal weights and measures includes liars, but it is also many, many more of these things, because if we are treating people in such a way that we are cowardly, we're operating with unequal weights and measures. If we are faithless, unequal weights and measures, maybe consistently faithless or consistently cowardly, but unequal weights and measures. Detestable, same thing. Murderers, you're treating somebody else's life as less important than your own. Sexually immoral, you are taking what is not yours. Unequal weights and measures. Sorcerers, unequal weights and measures, because you are trying to dabble in things that you should have no part with. Idolaters, worshiping things, putting worthiness of worship on something that is not worthy. Unequal weights and measures. All liars. Their portion will be in the lake that burns with fire and sulfur, which is the second death. Then came out of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls full of the 7 last plagues, and spoke to me, saying, come, and I will show you the bride, the wife of the Lamb. And he carried me away in the Spirit to a great high mountain, and showed me the holy city Jerusalem coming down out of heaven from God, having the glory of God, its radiance like a most rare jewel, like a jasper clear as crystal. It had a great high wall with 12 gates, and the gates 12 angels, and on the gates the names of the 12 tribes of the sons of Israel were inscribed. On the east 3 gates, on the north 3 gates, on the south 3 gates, and on the west 3 gates. And the wall of the city had 12 foundations, and on them were the 12 names of the apostles of the Lamb. And the one who spoke with me had a measuring rod of gold to measure the city and its gates and its walls. The city lies 4 square, its length and its width is the same as its width. And he measured the city with its rod 12,000 stadia. Its length and its width and its height are equal. He also measured its wall 144 cubits by human measurements, which is also an angel's measurement. The wall was built of jasper, while the city was pure gold, like clear glass. The fountain of the wall of the city, or the foundations of the wall of the city, were adorned with every kind of jewel. The first was jasper, the second was sapphire, the third was agate, the fourth was emerald, the fifth was onyx, the sixth was carnel, the seventh was chrysolite, the eighth was beryl, the ninth was topaz, the 10th was chrysoprase, the 11th was jacinth, the 12th was amethyst. And the 12 gates were 12 pearls, each of the gates made of a single pearl. And the street of the city was pure gold, like transparent glass. And I saw no temple in the city, for its temple is the Lord God, the Almighty, and the Lamb. And the city has no need of sun or moon to shine on it, for the glory of God gives its light, and its lamp is the Lamb. By its light will the nations walk, and the kings of the earth will bring their glory into it, and its gates will never be shut by day, and there will be no night there. They will bring into the glory of and the honor of the nations, but nothing unclean will ever enter it, nor will anyone who does what is detestable or false, only those who are written in the Lamb's book of life. Only those who are entered into the Lamb's book of life, and nothing unclean will enter it, nothing detestable or false. Unequal weights and measures has no place in Yahweh's kingdom. I find that fascinating. We can go through this whole chapter, and there's so many layers to interpret that it is beyond the scope of this video, let alone beyond the scope of my ability. But twice in this chapter, we have that abominations are a no-go in Yahweh's kingdom. And he will make us clean. And he has cleaned us. But we cannot keep operating like we are still of this world. That's something that we need to take very seriously. We've just gone through scripture the whole way through all of this. Unequal weights and measures, I think, really applies to so many aspects of our life that honestly, what are we doing in our day-to-day operations? And are we giving things the effort that it deserves? Are we treating people with the righteousness that they deserve? Are we treating people with the grace that they don't deserve? Are we operating in such a way that we are being extra gracious to someone because we should be? But are we also not being a pushover and just letting people just run right over us? Are we also giving ourselves slack that we do not need to be giving ourselves? Equal weights and measures is so much more of our day-to-day life than I think we really pay attention to. The base principle that I really think we should be operating with this, and I've said this the whole way through from the beginning, is that if we owe something to somebody, we should be doing everything in our power to give them what is owed to them. If somebody owes something to us, we shouldn't be nickel and diming them. In general, it's, hey, operate with grace. Do not take from them something that is their sole source of income. Do not take from them something that is their sole source of warmth. Give them the grace to be able to operate. Forgive debts. But don't just expect people to forgive your debts willy-nilly. Because how are they going to be forgiving your debts willy-nilly if you are chasing after them for every single penny? Operate with grace. There are so many parables that Yeshua gives. And the one that comes to mind is the manager who is going after this dude who his debt was just forgiven. You know, a debt that he could never repay. And then he's going after somebody for the equivalent of $5 because, hey, pay me what's owed to me. You were given so much grace when Yeshua saved you. And are you chasing after other people? Because, oh, this is what's owed to me. No. You've been given a whole bunch. Now you need to operate like you've actually been redeemed. And here, I owe you this. Keep short accounts. Pay it. But don't expect that from somebody else. Because how are they supposed to see Messiah operating in you if you are not operating super filled with the Ruach? I'm just saying. Unequal weights and measures, I think, applies to so many areas. And this is something that we seriously need to audit ourselves of where are we slacking off? Because I think the most fascinating part of this is, are we slacking off in our ability to rest? Because we're slacking off everywhere else. We're not giving things the attention that it deserves throughout the week. So that way we can actually just take time and unplug on Shabbat. This unequal weights and measures thing, it's everywhere. Go do hard things.